Before you start imagining me in a straw hat pressing grapes with my feet, hold on. I actually tried to buy a vineyard. Not a movie-style Tuscan villa, but a real, affordable piece of land where you can grow grapes, make wine, and maybe fix your soul a little. And to pick the right country, I compared Spain, Portugal, Greece, and Italy, and the results surprised even me. Step 1. How much vineyard do you actually get for your money? Let's start with the brutal question. For 30 to 100K, do you get a vineyard or just 3 vines and a parking spot? Very roughly, in non-famous regions. Spain, vineyard land averages around the mid-teens per hectare. In some cheaper regions, you can go much lower. With 100K, you can realistically look at 4 to 6 hectares, and even more if you go to very unfashionable areas. Portugal, interior regions are similar or a bit higher. Think roughly 4 to 6 hectares for 100K, but prices have been jumping because everyone suddenly decided they love Portugal. Italy, you pay a premium for the word Italy on the label. In cheaper southern or island areas, you might get 2 to 3 hectares. In famous regions, your 100K buys a nice lunch and maybe 1 row of vines. Greece. In many rural wine regions, land is still very affordable, so you can potentially get more hectares per euro than in the other 3. So, if your dream is as much land as possible for the least money, your mind immediately goes Spain, or Greece, or some forgotten corner of Portugal. Italy smiles at you and says, you can have less land, but I'll be pretty. And honestly, it's not wrong. Step 2. Can you actually buy as a foreigner? Or is it paperwork hell? Short version. All 4 are in the EU, and all 4 let foreigners buy. The difference is how much bureaucracy pain you're willing to tolerate. Spain. You get a tax number, you sign at the notary, you pay your taxes. It's paperwork, but it's all pretty standard. Lots of English-speaking lawyers and agents. Spain is used to foreigners buying fincas. Portugal. Honestly, one of the easiest. You get a Portuguese tax number, a lawyer, sign the deed, done. The country is very used to foreign buyers, especially in the last decade. Italy. Italy says, yes, you can buy, but first, let's do some paperwork, then some more paperwork, and then a final bonus round of paperwork. It's all legal, transparent, safe, just slower. You absolutely need a good local notary and probably a lawyer. It works, but bring patience. Greece. Legally, you can buy. For some border or strategic areas, there can be extra formalities, but for most wine regions, it's fine. The catch is, registration and land records can be messy, slow, and very old school. This is the country where the view is incredible, but the file you need is in another office. So in terms of ease for a normal human being, Portugal and Spain are the lightest. Italy is same, but with drama. Greece is possible, but hire a very good lawyer and don't rush. Step 3. Climate. Are your grapes going to live or roast? All 4 countries are in the lovely Mediterranean, but getting hotter every year zone. Big picture. Spain. Enormous variety. From cool, rainy Atlantic regions in the north to near desert in parts of the south and interior. You can choose cooler, high-altitude zones or cheaper, hotter flatland. Climate change here equals more heat waves, more drought. Irrigation and water rights suddenly matter a lot. Portugal. Atlantic influence is your friend. North and coastal are cooler and wetter. Inland regions like Douro or Alentejo get hot and dry, similar to interior Spain. If your vines are near a big river or an irrigation project, you can handle the heat better. Italy, probably the widest menu of microclimates. Alpine north with snow and cool reds. Classic Mediterranean center. Deep, sunny south. You can still find places where summers are warm, but not apocalyptic. Hills, altitude, and north-facing slopes are your best friends here. Greece. Greece is full Mediterranean, no filter. Hot, dry summers, especially on the islands and south. Many vineyards live purely on winter rain, which is getting less reliable. The upside. Traditional Greek grapes are used to this madness and still make great wine. The downside. Climate change is already biting. Water and fire risk are real topics, not theory. So if your dream is sun, but not my vines crying for water every August, you probably look for north/higher altitude Spain or Italy, northern central Portugal, higher inland parts of Greece rather than dry islands. Step 4. Infrastructure. Are we talking real vineyard or isolated Instagram backdrop? You're not just buying vines, you're buying access roads, water and electricity. And, let's be honest, distance to good coffee, distance to markets, ports, airports. Spain. Excellent highways, decent rail. Most wine areas are reachable easily by car, and getting your bottles to a distributor or port isn't a big problem. Rural Spain is relatively well connected. Portugal. Good main highways. Okay, rail. The country is small, which helps. You're rarely truly far from a city or port. Interior areas like Douro are more remote, but still functional. Italy. In the north and center, infrastructure is solid. Highways, trains, everything. In some parts of the south and islands, you can feel the difference. Still workable, just less polished. Greece. On the mainland, main routes are fine. On islands and in remote mountain villages, let's say it's romantic, but not always logistics friendly. Great for soul, less great for shipping pallets of wine. If you plan to sell mostly locally or to tourists, infrastructure is less critical. If you dream of exporting pallets of your surname winery to half of Europe, Spain, Portugal, and northern central Italy are easier logistics. Step 5. Lifestyle and wine tourism. Where is it fun to actually live? Now we get to the emotional part. You're not just buying soil, you're buying a life. Italy. Let's be honest, Italy is boss level on lifestyle. Endless food, little hill towns, handwritten menus, wine roads, agriturismos, classical ruins, the whole postcard. Wine tourism is very developed in places like Tuscany, Piedmont, Veneto. If you run a tiny agriturismo plus winery, you can plug into a tourism flow that already exists. Spain. Spain is more fiesta and tapas energy. Strong wine culture, but slightly less romanticized for tourists than Italy, except in La Rioja and a few famous spots. Still, rural tourism is growing. Cost of living can be lower than Italy. Social life is vibrant, people are friendly, and the pace is relaxed. If you like long lunches, late dinners, and village festivals, welcome home. Portugal. Portugal is like the quiet friend everyone suddenly realized is cool. Good quality of life, generally safe, friendly people, lots of English spoken. Wine tourism is booming in Douro, Alentejo, and beyond. There's a big expat scene, but it still feels more authentic and less overrun than certain parts of Spain and Italy. If you want calm, gentle, wake up with a view and a coffee life, Portugal fits. Greece. Greece wins hard on raw beauty and atmosphere. Blue sea, white houses, olives, old stone villages, ruins everywhere, slow evenings. Wine tourism exists in Santorini, Nemea, Crete, and a few other hotspots, but it's not as industrialized as Italy or Spain. It's more small, soulful, slightly chaotic, which some people absolutely love, others absolutely don't. So lifestyle winners depend on your fantasy. Chic postcard plus built-in tourism. Italy. Warm, social, affordable village life. Spain. Calm, safe, soft landing for foreigners. Portugal. Epic scenery and mythological vibes. Greece. Step 6. Support for winemaking. Are you on your own? Starting a vineyard as a newcomer is not just romance. You need agricultural advice, maybe a cooperative to sell grapes to, labs, suppliers, consultants, and ideally some subsidies who quietly pay for your new tractor. Roughly speaking, Italy and Spain have the deepest, most structured wine ecosystems. Lots of cooperatives, lots of consultants, regional wine consortia, EU money flowing into vineyards and rural development. Portugal also has decent support, just on a smaller scale. Douro, Alentejo, Dow, etc. have co-ops and professional services. EU funds are there, and the state has been pretty friendly to agriculture and wine. Greece has the smallest support structure. There are co-ops and programs, but per hectare support is usually lower, and there are fewer established plug-and-play structures for foreigners. Totally possible, just more DIY. if you want a smoother, more guided path from I have land to I have bottled wine. Italy, Spain, and Portugal give you more pre-existing infrastructure. Greece is more pioneer mode. Step 7. Long-term value. Is this a passion project or also an investment? Nobody buys a vineyard purely as a spreadsheet decision. But still, it's not bad to know what happens if, one day, you want to sell. Very simplified. Spain. Slow, steady growth in vineyard land prices. Not a huge speculative rocket, but stable. In known regions or places with good water, there's likely long-term demand. Portugal has been catching up from a lower base. Rural land in some zones has already jumped quite fast. There's still room for growth, especially in scenic or irrigated areas. Italy, super stable. Prime wine regions are already very expensive. In those zones, your main job is to hold on to what you have. In cheaper southern areas, growth could be slower, but Italy's brand protects value long-term. Greece, still relatively cheap outside of famous islands. There's upside if the economy keeps improving and Greek wine keeps growing in reputation. Liquidity is weaker though. It can take longer to find a buyer. So if you want something that is safest store of value, Italy, best mix of value plus growth potential. Portugal, biggest land for money, steady but modest growth. Spain, high risk / high reward plus lifestyle. Greece, so who's the winner? All right, time to actually answer the title. Based on budget of 30 to 100K. Want something small or family-sized? Want a mix of wine production, lifestyle, and investment? Don't want to drown in bureaucracy, and don't want your vines to literally catch fire every summer. Here's how I'd call it. Italy is the emotional winner. It's the poster child for vineyard dreams. But for this budget, you either compromise on land size or go to very unfashionable areas. Amazing if your heart is set on Italy, but not the most efficient choice on paper. Greece is the romantic wild card. You can get more land and a crazy beautiful lifestyle, but with more climate risk, less support, and slower resale. Perfect if your soul is yelling Greece or nothing. Spain is the value for money champion. Plenty of hectares, solid infrastructure, big domestic wine culture, and good co-ops. If your brain wants logic, Spain looks very strong. Portugal, for me, is the overall winner for this particular scenario. You don't get the absolute cheapest land in Europe, but you get reasonable prices for decent-sized plots, very friendly environment for foreigners, strong lifestyle, safe, calm, beautiful, lots of English, wine regions with growing international prestige, a real sense that the rural property market is still on the way up, not already overheated. Spain is a very close second, and if you told me I'm buying in rural Spain instead, I'd say, good choice. Just send me a bottle when your first vintage is ready. But if I had to pick one flag to plant on a 30 to 100K vineyard project that balances head and heart, I'd plant it in Portugal. Portugal feels like that friend who doesn't shout the loudest, but quietly wins long-term. The landscapes are stunning, the people are kind, the wine is underrated, and you get both a life and an asset. Final thoughts. So, if hearing all this makes some part of you think, maybe my future isn't in my current apartment with my current commute. Maybe my future is somewhere between rows of vines with dusty boots and a wine glass instead of a coffee mug. You're not crazy. You're just early. If you want to change your life, to feel the small everyday joys of living in another country, whether that ends up being Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, or somewhere else entirely, stick around. That's exactly what we explore on this channel, the real, unpolished, practical side of building an almost expat life. So if you're curious, if you're dreaming, or if you're secretly browsing vineyard listings at 2 a.m., hit subscribe and let's figure this out together, step by step. Until next time, arrivederci, amici. And now, I want to hear from you. If someone handed you 100,000 euros and said, you must spend this on a vineyard in Spain, Portugal, Greece, or Italy, no refunds, which country would you choose? And what would you name your very first wine?